Okay, we are on Kilayim, Perek Bet Mishnah Tet. Perek Bet Mishnah Tet of Kilayim. Says the Mishnah, Harav Asot Sadehu Karachat Mikol Min. You want to make your field into karachot, are basically squares. So if you have an empty space and you want to make it into like small squares from different species, so even though we've been learning all along about that you're not allowed to plant fields adjacent to one field adjacent to another field, now we're going to discover that that's not entirely true. And that's only if you plant one big field, and in that field you want to plant something adjacent to it. But if you have an entire field and you want to divide it up and to make it into smaller fields, says the Mishnah, Oseh esrim ba'arba karachot lebeit sa'ah, mikarachat lebeit rova. Okay, a beit sa'ah, let's go back to we're going to go to we learned before in a number of Mishnah ago, that a sa'ah was 6 kav, okay, which was 24 rova hakav. So it was a huge amount. So a beit sa'ah, as we're going to see, a beit sa'ah is 2,500 square amot. Okay? And so if I wanted to divide that up, 2,500 square amot, and I want to divide it into 24, so if I could plant a sa'ah, one sa'ah in 2,500 square amot, one rova hakav would be divided into 24. One rova hakav is 20. Remember we said a rova hakav, a sa'ah is 6 kavin, and a quarter of a kav would be 24 of those, so then I'd have to divide it into 24 equal squares. A karachat is a square. Why? I don't know. So the way that Rav Felix, I got this from Rav Felix's book, the way that Rav Felix divided into 24 would be 10.2 amot by 10.2 amot. That's how you would get exactly 2,500 square amot, approximately. You could do the math later if you wanted to divide it into 24. So we'll go back to our Mishnah. In this case, Osim esrim ba'arba karachot lebeit sa'ah, mikarachat lebeit rova. So each karachat, each square, you would take in beit sa'ah, and take 24 of those, and each karachat would be a beit rova, which would be, as we said, 10.2 amot square. V'zorea betocha kol min sheyirtzeh, and you could plant in it any species that you want. Why is that? How does that work? Says the Bartanura. Why kol min sheyirtzeh? V'lo matzur Rabbi Meir chaka kla. Rabbi Meir doesn't require in this case you to distance one from another. Why? Dekevan de mirubaoten, since they are mirubaot square, nirot mufrashut or muvdalot, so they look separate from one another. So let's go back to the Mishnah. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir of the Tanna Kama, who says if you want to do your field, divide your field into karachot of squares, go for it. Haita karachat achat oshtayim. Okay, how many karachot, how many squares adjacent to one another can I plant? And they'll still be considered individual squares. Says it's, so if you have one or two, zoran chardal, then you're allowed to plant mustard. But shalosh, if you have 3 of them together, 3 adjacent ones, lo yizra chardal, you're not allowed to plant 3 of them adjacent mustard. Because then if you have 3 in a row, it's going to look like you're planting a chardal field in the middle of your field. Okay, because you don't normally, the chardal, the mustard, they would plant in very small quantities. Therefore, chardal, you couldn't plant 3 in a row. The Kahati says, but, okay, 3 in a row of other species, and it's quoted the Bartanura, let's see for a second. Okay, Zoram chardal. Okay, aval shalosh karachot, it says, looks like a field of chardal. Ushar minim, other species, even 3 karachot, einam niram kasadeh. It doesn't look like kasadeh. So if you want to have 3 karachot of tomatoes in a row, that you're allowed to do. But mustard, I guess they planted small quantities and that would be enough, so therefore it would be like a permanent field. Now a different case entirely. The Mishnah is now turning to another case entirely, and there's a lot of interesting diagrams. I'm just going to show you 2 of them that Rav Felix shared, that I got from the Kahati. New case. Teisha karachot mutarot, eser asarot. Rabbi Meir says you can plant all 24. Chachamim say no. You can plant in a one field in a beit sa'ah. If you divide them into karachot of rova, then you can plant teisha karachot. Now only 9 are mutar, eser asurot. Let's see the Bartanura to understand what he's talking about. Chachamim omrim areisha kamahader. The Chachamim are arguing about Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir said you can plant all 24 the way you want. And the Chachamim osrim lismoch min etzel min acher. The Chachamim said you cannot plant one species adjacent to another. Ella osel lebeit sa'ah kaf hey karachot. So rather, you make your beit sa'ah into 25 different squares. Actually, it makes more sense because if a karachat is a square, I don't need 10.2 into 24 because if we look back again, this is not a square, which is interesting. The only way you can get to 100 square amot is if you don't have a square. But if I do 5 by 5, 5 by 5, this I got from the Kahati. I just took a picture. Then I have, think about it, 2,500 square amot, 75 amot by 75. Okay? 75 by 75. Does it sound right? 2,500? We'll do the math later. Okay. Back to the Bartanura. Okay. V'chol shura mechamesh karachot. 5 rows of 5. V'zoreach karcha rishona shel shura rishona u'meiniach shniya etzla boreh. V'zoreach shlishit u'meiniach boreh. Etc. Etc. So you plant and you leave fallow. Plant and leave fallow. Plant and leave fallow. The most you can then have is 9. This is what the Chachamim say. If I take my Beit Sa'ah, since I have to have an interruption between one and the other, so I plant, fallow, plant, fallow, plant, fallow, etc., etc. So therefore, I have to have rows of a Beit Rova interrupting between each planted row. And so therefore, what's the maximum I can plant? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? Back to our Mishnah. That's Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer, Chachamim, that's what we said. Tesha karachot mutarot, eser asurot. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Afilu kol sadehu beit kur, lo yaseh betocha chutz mikarachat achad. He says, even if your whole field is a beit kur, is a huge amount. A beit kur is a tremendous amount. 30 sa'ah, which is 30 times what we've been talking about until now. You can only do 1 karachat in the field. He says, sorry, you cannot, because otherwise it's considered like Kilayim, you're planting too many in the same field. The Bartanura actually says, the Kahati says, if you look at the Bartanura, okay, Talmud Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov lo it paresh. I don't really know. It's not explained why Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said what he did. In case you're wondering, you notice that I had 2 pictures here. This explanation is according to the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, the Chachamim say that you're allowed to actually plant on the diagonal, but you still can't have more than 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? He says because you can't be surrounded on all 4 sides. I didn't go into it in depth because I wonder then why can't I plant here and here unless you're assuming that I have another field over here. That I have more fields over here. So that in any given 25 area squared, you cannot have more than 9 according to the Yerushalmi. That's the second one. But according to the normative understanding Chachamim, you have 9 separated by a Beit Rova. Okay, if you have any comments or questions, feel free as always. We'll dedicate the learning to the memory of my father, Harav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman, and my email is rspolter@gmail.com. Have a great day.